Welcome to the GYG podcast. Today we shall be discussing life on lockdown with a very special guest. Afra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hiya, I go to school at Jeevan, both in the same politics class and history class, so there's often a lot of shared opinions and a lot of chit chat about like current events. So yeah, very happy to be here, very happy to chit chat away.
And we also have Mason, who like everyone should know already.
Hello, reporter.
So, as is the case for everyone in the country and probably most of the world right now, our lives have been completely transformed by coronavirus. So what we're going to talk about today is just the big question of what is it like to live in this kind of dystopian life of lockdown in coronavirus. Like, who would have thought that in 2020 we'd be living through a pandemic like this?
I know.
Insane.
I saw a statistic where it was like 1.3, it was either billion or million, there's a big difference between, but people were on lockdown like globally. I just thought like, wow, like we're all in this same boat.
I know, it's absolutely insane.
Amazing.
So basically what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how we've been affected as school students, as prospective university students. Like obviously our results or our exams have been cancelled, so the question of results and uni applications are completely up in the air. No one knows entirely what's going on. Our role as employees and how jobs have been affected, not just for us but for people who might rely on them a bit more than teenagers. We're going to talk about our day-to-day lives, how we're staying sane basically, and we're also going to be talking about the wider impact on society, and like the economy is going to be completely transformed. Like there's going to be huge implications, and we can see a shift in the environment. Maybe people are going to start taking it a bit more seriously now. So without further ado, let me schools, the closure of the schools was one of the first things to take effect, and I don't know about you guys, but for me that was the first thing that kind of set it into my head, like this is serious. So Afra, do you want to talk us through your thought process during the week leading up to school closures?
It was like a lot of like, it was weird because it was like we're having snow day or something. Like, it was weird because it was this unprecedented situation and there was a lot of excitement, but then also, if you kind of spoke to like year 13s and year 11s, it was, oh my goodness, what is happening to our exams, what's going on? And I think that there was like a massive difference in attitudes between the younger years and then our years, in the sense of we've actually, like, these are big parts of our life, big years in our lives, and there are now massive hurdles in between us and where we want to be. So I was nervous in the sense of, oh my God, what's going to happen to my exams, all the work I've put in. And I do feel a bit reassured now, but it's still, because it's a new situation, it's like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, it was like a big thing for us as well, because like for year 13s, it's our last year of school. We were looking forward to prom and leavers maths and results day and stuff. And suddenly, well, in our school, Afra kind of dragged us everyone down from form room and we did an impromptu leavers maths assembly thing in the canteen area.
That was brilliant.
It was so funny.
Everyone get down, we're going. Everyone stop what you're doing. Pulled up a little podium.
Yeah, she grabbed a lectern from the main stage and everyone was doing speeches. It was brilliant. But it does kind of feel weird that we didn't get to experience that final thing of saying goodbye to your friends. Like, it's the uncertainty really that has been the most difficult thing for me personally.
Yeah.
So what have been, Mason, you know a lot about this, you've been doing a State of Schools podcast as well. Do you want to talk us through the implications that this has had for uni applications?
Yeah, so there originally were quite a lot of uncertainty with regards to sort of panic offering and panic accepting from students thinking, oh, I've got these offers from university, the deadline is supposed to be in May, but maybe they'll shut it all out on me, so let's quickly accept these offers, even though maybe I don't have all of the offers at the moment. And then universities thinking, do we give unconditional still? Do we change our grade boundaries, etc.? So there was a lot of uncertainty with that. But that's sort of been cleared up now, where Claire Marchant, the CEO of UCAS, like I said in yesterday's episode on the state of school, she cleared it up. She said you've got until May. They've extended it until for 2 weeks now, into May, to sort of create a bit more clarity and relieve the pressure on students and universities as well. But I think there is still that uncertainty of students thinking, what will my grades be at by the end of it? Because if we were to have received predicted grades, for example, we would know already, but now we have to wait until July, and it's this big waiting game, which is really frustrating, and really it's giving a lot of people anxiety, I think.
Yeah, it's been like, there is like kind of a bigger issue here, I think, like, the government have all been saying that they didn't have time to prepare for this, and it is a completely unprecedented situation, but no one really knows what's going on. We've just been getting letters from the school saying, we don't know anything. I'm like, we know you don't know anything. Like, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, but like, no one could have prepared for this. But the thing is that these are people's futures. Like, my A-level results can influence whether I go to university or not. They can influence people's placements in apprenticeships, in jobs. Do you guys think that the government have taken a good stance on this? Do you think we're getting enough information?
We're getting enough information. I think at the moment, as it stands, I'm happy with the situation. I just would like to be maybe more communication between me and my teacher to say, this is the process that I'm using personally for me to say, this is how I'm going to give you your grades is based off X, Y, and Z, and going through that process. But I think that going through the route of communicating with teachers and based off your ability is a lot better, because personally, my brother, they did predicted grades. He wouldn't have passed maths, but he's been putting in a lot of work, and obviously everyone knows the last few months before exams, it's kind of like knuckle down, get on with your work. You need to get these exams in. So I'm happy that they've had other factors into account, and it will obviously hopefully work in his favour. But it's just the communication between the teachers and the students to say, this is what we're doing, because the government can say X, Y, and Z, but this is what we as a school are doing and how we're going to hand out your grades.
Yeah, you're completely right.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. And like the fact that it's not just predicted grades, even though some people may have thought, oh, my predicted grades are really good, I want that. It's not fair overall, because there's loads of people who may not want those predicted grades and may have been working so hard since receiving them to try and turn the tables around.
I think when you kind of take away exams, you kind of take away students' ability to control as best they can the results that they get. Because if I'd got my predicted grades for GCSEs, I would not have gotten into sixth form. But the fact is that people do work. It's like, grades aren't a linear thing. You don't start off with an A star and then come out the other end of year 13 or year 11 with an A star. It's a progression. You need to work for it. And like, this whole thing of we might use mock results and homework, people don't usually put in the same amount of effort. I know I certainly don't into homework and coursework, and well, maybe coursework and mock exams the same way that I would do for my final exams. So just the whole thing just seems a bit unfair. So next thing we're going to talk about is jobs. So do you guys want to explain the situation of your employment at the moment and what's going on with your jobs right now?
I've got a long employment story. I have all types of like turmoil with my employment. So I work at Fat Face in Bluewater, and the week before we went on lockdown, we were told to bring in board games and like keep ourselves entertained, because we literally got 2 customers in a whole late shift. That's 4 hours. We didn't make a lot of money, and it was evident all the other shops were closing down. It was like we were the last ones left, and there was nothing going on. So then when everything went on lockdown, we stopped work, we closed work, and we were told that this week we find out about work. Now, I'm planning to go to university, and I still need to have some type of employment because I want to support myself for university as much as possible. I don't want to be like a burden on my family. I want to be able to make money, as much money between like now and September, so I'm comfortable in university life. So I went and got a job at Tesco's. I'm unable to keep that job because it clashed with the terms of like the pay that I get at Fat Face for being on, it's like furlough. So that clashed with that. And I saw this morning on Twitter, there was a bit of controversy around furlough, people saying that it was kind of like government and it wasn't really helping staff. So I need to do some more research onto that, but I'm curious in how the pros and cons work for that. But it is, I find it really hard not being in work because I like routine, especially having all this time, having to do less schoolwork. I find it really hard not being in employment, and I think it's so odd because I've been working for quite a while and having nothing to do with the house it's really strange.
Mason, what about you?
Yeah, so previously I was unemployed, so I was just sort of focusing on my studies.
Yeah, it's really tough because I personally work at a cafe, and I'm lucky enough not to rely on my job for like my housing and my food. Like my parents provide all my essentials for me, but I do work with parents and I work with people who have to pay mortgages or rent and phone bills and car bills, who have to feed their children and their families. And like, oh, what was I going to say? Like, this has massive implications for people's lives. Obviously, it sucks for me because now I can't, spend money on ASOS, or I can't go to McDonald's. But for me, it's pocket money. For other people, these are their actual lives.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I was speaking to two business owners yesterday, and they were saying that this is going to have massive implications for them. They are unable to continue living their lifestyles. And what kind of support is the government giving to people like that?
And for me, the situation, it was kind of like you either take the furlough with that face or you face redundancy. That was the situation I was in because I couldn't do both. And I was thinking, I was worried that if that phase, we went through a recession, if as the brand, we wouldn't be able to survive it. And then what would happen with my employment? Because I meant to go to Southampton and I meant to work in their store. So I was wondering about that. And I was thinking, if I stayed at Tesco's, I've got a secured amount of hours and it's going to be a business that clearly isn't going anywhere during these tough times. So it was like a big decision between what I know or kind of like the uncertainty that goes towards Tesco's. And it was really tricky to decide, but I did stay with that face. But like Jeevan said, people need it for their mortgage, their rent, people need it for their kids, their future. Like, we're not trying to live just by the days, we're trying to live, to be sustainable. We're trying to have sustainable lives, trying to have sustainable money in our bank accounts, so we know that in a year's time we'll be okay. And I think that this situation has put a lot of people at unease because they're not too sure what's happening financially.
So if we're going to move on to talk about our day-to-day lives now. So for me, this is the first time in living memory where I've had no external responsibility of school, of exams, of work, and I'm kind of loving it, but at the same time it's kind of put my life at a complete standstill. So I think what a lot of people are struggling with in this period of self-isolation and quarantine is, what on earth do we do during a lockdown? How do we stay sane? How do we stay happy and healthy? So what have you guys been doing to kind of keep your minds active and to keep your body healthy and to stay sane during this period?
Do you want to go for it?
I've been going on walks, a lot of walks, and doing a lot of history coursework, trying to get that finished. Jeevan and me are trying to knuckle down and get as much done as possible.
I haven't been doing history coursework.
I have been told every day of my dad that if you don't do it, what else are they going to mark your work on? So out of fear of my dad and then the repercussions of not doing my coursework, I've been trying to do that. But I've been trying to do some yoga and just a lot of just things that I would feel guilty for doing when the exams are on, when I had to do my revision, like reading a book of my own choice, not
same.
like the luxuries, doing a bit of drawing here and there, like things that if I did, I'd be like, oh my God, what are you doing? You have to do your work. We've got things going on. But now, like having this break, and then later today, I'm going to try and fix my bike so I can go on some bike rides. So I'm happy that I feel more active, I feel more healthy, but in my head, it's just like, you need to do something. What are you doing? Because I'm in the mode of revision exams, work, get up and do things. But it's like having all this free time. It's so strange.
So whenever I try to do something, my brain kind of tells me you should be reading your politics textbook. Exactly, you should be doing coursework or homework. I'm like, there's nothing to do. Like, all my responsibility is to myself. And it's such a weird feeling. Mason, what about you?
Yeah, so it was really strange for me because the week before we were all sent home, essentially, I was in self-isolation. So I was following this routine of doing the schoolwork which was being sent and emailed to me, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. So it's really strange to then have that routine at home to then not have any routine whatsoever. So I'm trying to stay fit, stay healthy, trying to do some boxercise, which is
fun.
There's loads of things going around in the internet at the moment. I'm like, oh, am I not getting into this?
I love it. Everyone's sort of like sharing their ideas of what to do, like yoga. I tried that the other day, really enjoyed it. So I think I'm going to follow one of the 30-day steps. But there's also some teachers are sending me work saying that you have to do this, you have to write these essays and stuff like that. But I'm thinking to myself, what enforcement do you have behind that for other students? I mean, they've not really made explicit to say this will contribute towards your towards our judgment, for example. So it's a bit like, do we do the work, do we not? So that's a bit of a concern at the moment. We need a bit more clarity on that.
I think a lot of the things I've seen going around on Instagram is this expectation that your life has to be perfect during this period of isolation. You know, people like read all these books, paint with Michelangelo, you have to do yoga every day, run a marathon every weekend. And I'm like, I think this whole quarantine, although it's really upsetting that this whole pandemic is going on, I think for me personally, I've really kind of tried to use this as an opportunity to think inwardly for once, to think what can I do to relax? What can I do to improve myself? Like, I've set goals for September. I want to be in uni. I want to be a little bit fitter. I want to read books that I love. So using this as a period to, as you say, do yoga, try some online workouts, go for a jog or a walk a few times a week, and like try new skills like cooking and stuff like that. And it's really a time to think about where you want to be in the future, but not to have this expectation of you've got to read every single Victorian classic you can get your hands on.
Your ceiling should look like the Sistine Chapel by the end of it all. Like, the amount of pressure. And it's kind of like the wellness people on Instagram, like, put your head down, like, now you have all this free time, become a mindful person. If you can't levitate by the end of these 21 days, you failed yourself as a person.
Like, if you can't cook like Gordon Ramsay, go home.
Exactly, and we all must tune into Boris Johnson's daily televised press conferences at 5 o'clock. Like, there's a lot of kind of like, we must do this, we must do that. And I think especially for us as students in this stage of our lives, we can kind of just like relax and find what we want to do. I understand why the year 10s and people like year 11s need to be working because they're still going into this same type of routine education. But we're going off to university. It's going to be more freedom, more flexibility. So how about we start managing our time now instead of waiting down the road and doing it?
Yeah, it really is a time to think about doing things for yourself, like reading a book because it's what you want to do, or baking cookies because it's what you want to do, and doing
self-love,
things.
Self-love, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
Self-care.
Self-love, 100%.
Yeah. So, next, finally, we're going to talk about society and the wider impact that coronavirus is having on our society. So, this has, as I said, this has completely turned life as we know it upside down. So how has society changed, and how do you guys think that do you think that change is going to be, is going to continue after the pandemic?
Well, like, firstly, before we go on to the negatives, because there are definitely going to be some negative impacts of this, can we just appreciate last night the clapping for the NHS?
Oh, yes,
oh, that was
how
lovely.
amazing was that? I mean,
I was trying to watch Mulan, and someone was like, no, I was watching Monsters Inc. on Disney Plus, and someone started clapping, and I was like, you're disturbing me. But no, I appreciate it.
It's so nice to see, because like, particularly my road, we're not a very social road. Like, that's probably quite the case as well across the country, and everyone's just sort of coming out at 8 at night and just clapping. It was so nice to see. It was really good.
I think what this is really going to teach us is that just to appreciate the essential workers, like people who work in supermarkets, nurses, NHS staff, teachers, like even bin men and, you know, cleaners who are out taking
delivery people.
Delivery people. They are so essential to the way we live our day-to-day lives. We physically cannot carry carry on without them. And it just really shows an underappreciation, especially for teachers and NHS staff. They really should be paid so much more.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, should we talk about negatives now? I love a good rant. So
yeah.
I think what I can see in reactions to coronavirus is a kind of divide between people. So there's people who are kind of thinking, you know, outwardly, let's care for older neighbours or family members and those who are more vulnerable. And then we have people who are kind of thinking inwardly about themselves. Obviously, we've had a big issue with panic buying and people going to supermarkets and grabbing all the pasta and toilet roll they can get their hands on and not really leaving anything else for other people. Have you seen those pictures on like social media of old people going to Sainsbury's or something and there's nothing left? Like, it's absolutely insane.
Especially
it's ridiculous. Yeah, and people, I've heard that people are faking, they're pretending to be NHS staff when they get to the till and ask to show their ID. They don't have ID. When I did my trial shift at Tesco's, we had a queue going all the way back, and this man came, was like, this woman in front of me was complaining, but we're all in the same situation, and you came buying way more pasta than I'm sure your household needs. So it's ridiculous, but I really feel for people that work in supermarkets, especially because the amount of stick they must be getting for just doing their day-to-day jobs. Like, they're probably not thinking they're going to a really stressful job, but now it's been turned into this worldwide thing where you're having to argue with customers, having to say, no, you cannot have 5 tubes of, I don't know, pastry. It doesn't matter, like, you can't do that, having to be like there's some of enforcement when really their jobs were never that in the first place.
It's literally like they're policing the shops rather than working in there now, because they have to. They're being forced to, aren't they?
But like, why do you guys think that people are reacting in this way, that there's a pandemic and your first thought is, I'm going to buy all the food so that no one else can get it? Like, do you think it comes from fear or panic, or do you think that we're just exposing a more selfish version of people now with the pandemic?
I think social media has a lot to play with this.
Oh my goodness!
I think they were saying on the news how, for example, on platforms like TikTok, they show all these empty shelves, and this immediately puts into the receiver's mind, oh, there's not going to be any food left. I need to panic buy. I need to get all of this, all of that, because they're heightening something. It could happen in the first place, but they're heightening it as well to make it seem extremely big, when the government have said that they have plenty of stocks and they have plenty of transport routes for the food, for the toiletries, etc. So I think social media has a huge role to play for that.
But it's getting so crazy how this whirlwind of thing it's like picked up so quickly. And you think in places like Florida where they have hurricanes, they've got to stockpile anyway, but you don't see them panic buying like we do. I saw a photo in Spain and it was absolutely fine in their supermarket. But I think because we're not used to this type of like disaster where we're not exposed to like hurricanes and things like that, and we never actually been put in a situation where it's like, right, we've all got to shut down everything, everyone's kind of freaking out. And a lot of this miseducation and in the media with people acting more dramatic than they need to be, because I think even the tone of people's voice is kind of like, okay, let's remember we've got enough food, like calm it down. This whole we need this like urgency in the people's voices, because you're going to stress people out, and then what's going to happen? People are going to go to supermarkets and elbow someone for a pasta. Like, it really is not a situation that needs to result to violence, but it is. And I think everyone needs to just calm down and remember, like, it's going to be okay. Like, the world is going to keep spinning and the food is going to keep coming.
I think in the last couple of weeks, the information that we're getting from the government, it's kind of broken. We don't, like, every message seemed to be contradictory. And I was speaking to like one of my relatives in Ireland, and he was saying that people are staying indoors even without the need for a full enforced lockdown, and shops aren't being emptied of potatoes and pasta and sauce and rice and stuff. People are just being more calm, and maybe that has something to do with their government's reaction compared to how our government has reacted and how they're trying to prevent things like this. When in doubt, blame the government.
Yeah. Did anyone see the photos of Excel? They've turned that into a hospital.
Yes.
I've seen that.
Nightingale, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's like this massive room, and they're just putting like so many beds in there and things like that. And you think like, oh, like stuff like that obviously is to show that this is important, you've got to say them for these reasons, but it's making people freak out as well, because the man was like, we're building 2 morgues, and if you say we're building not just 1, 2 morgues, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, like it.
Oh no.
Oh, it's just kind of like cranking up the level of fear, and obviously we need to be educated on these things, but like, it's very dramatic.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was impressive. I did see the same video. It was impressive how big that space was. I think it was like a kilometre long or something, wasn't it?
And how quick they put it up, and how they're putting in the works and things like that. And obviously, it's got to be up to scratch for a medical facility. So props to them for getting it done so quickly.
Definitely.
Right. So another thing that has been circulating on social media that I thought would be worth bringing up. A few days ago, it was announced that Prince Charles sadly has coronavirus. And on the same day, I also saw an article that a woman in London who was 36, I believe, had died after showing symptoms of the coronavirus, and was told by the NHS or, you know, hospital or whatever, that she was not a priority.
Mm-hmm.
So has coronavirus demonstrated a serious division between people in terms of class and wealth? What do you guys think about that?
100%. My friend's mum is an NHS worker. She's been self-isolating for, I think, like a week and a half, and only today is she being tested for coronavirus. But he can cough, and he's already got a swab down his neck, and he's positive. Like, and she lives in a house with her parents, so there's already that added thing of being with elderly people. It's very quick for the people in high positions to get tested, but when the people that we need to go out and we need them to work continuously, they're having to wait, and there's not being enough supplies. So it definitely does show how the class system is working in the UK, and how it is very prevalent to the fact that if you're up here, you're a priority, but if you're down here, can you just stay at home for a bit and just kind of like keep yourself to yourself? So it's really obvious to see how that's operating in the UK.
And I think almost Prince Charles getting the coronavirus, it's sort of predictable in a sense, predictable that he was tested straight away. I think we're sort of seeing it coming, they would get tested. For example, Boris Johnson this morning got tested and he was positive. But another example from last week was Idris Elba, who was tested positive.
Yeah.
And he went to a private clinic, and that's how he got his results. And obviously you have to pay, I think it's £300 and something for a test at one of the private clinics, probably more now. And it just shows how the wealthy can buy this, whereas the poor can't.
Yeah.
Testing really should, it's like an invisible killer when you think about coronavirus, because no one really knows in this country who's got it, or if you have symptoms, if you do have it. I think testing is one of the essential things, so that you know exactly what the numbers are and where they are, and how to prevent them from spreading it further. I really think it's absolutely unreal to me that people aren't being tested a lot more. Why isn't the government doing that more?
And the World Health Organization, they literally said, test, test, test. That was their advice, and they are the experts. And I think it will happen soon. They did say they're going to roll out more tests, but is it quick enough?
Oh, fingers crossed. I think another thing that I've like kind of taken issue with, and that a lot of people on the internet have kind of taken issue with, is the role of celebrities in promoting self-isolation and social distancing. Obviously, it's great that these people have millions of followers and they're telling people to stay at home, but people have been kind of talking about the hypocrisy of it. Like, if you think about celebrities, they live in like 30-bedroom mansions and they have millions of dogs to, you know, keep them company or something, and they've got swimming pools and they've got like masses of land. Like, how can you compare a celebrity telling you to stay indoors when maybe you live with like in a smaller house with a lot of family members? Maybe you don't get on with them very well.
It's a nice sentiment, but it's just like, we're different. Do you know what I mean? And that is very apparent in the way that you're self-isolating and the way that I'm self-isolating. It's good, it's nice, it's promotion. I think that's kind of with everything, because even with things to do with like poverty and all these types of horrible diseases in third world countries, celebrities promote it, but we are very different, and the struggles that we face are very different. I just think that it's good that they're doing it, but it's a pinch of salt, because I just think you can talk about doing it, but if you have the means to help people and to maybe like, I don't know, fund research and fund people for testing facilities, that's a plus, and that will go a lot further than telling us all to stay at home from your 13-bedroom houses.
I think maybe what I would I think maybe what I would hope is that coronavirus kind of like sees a downfall in celebrity culture and our praising of them. These people really, I mean, not to like be mean to every single celebrity that's ever existed, but it just kind of is showing me that how out of touch they are. Have you seen like videos of Arnold Schwarzenegger like sitting in a hot tub with a mini pony and a donkey, and it's like, if I can stay indoors, so can you, but you can probably run a marathon in your kitchen. I can't do that. I'm much more constrained.
Exactly.
I mean, it is good that they're using their platform, because some people do have millions of followers, which I guess hones in, especially to young people, like this is serious, because it has sort of been evident that some young people may not have been taking it that seriously until it actually hit them like fully. So I guess that's good from an extent, but I do see where you're coming from completely.
So just to finish up, I think we should talk about the environmental impact. Obviously, global warming and climate change is something that, I mean, I know I feel quite strongly about at the moment. And I was looking on The Guardian the other day, and it was showing before and after of CO2 emissions in Europe. So, and like the difference between how it was before coronavirus and how it is now is absolutely crazy. Like, you've seen videos online of like animals walking on the streets and stuff, and the rivers in Venice are clear and there's fish in it and stuff. What do you guys think do you think that coronavirus is going to prompt a better, more progressive attitude towards climate change and
I think it's
environmental
amazing.
issues?
It shows how we're having this break, and society, as shaky as it is at the moment, can go on, and how these changes, even though these are massive changes, but they were overnight, and the effects they're having is within days we're seeing a positive change in our environment. So I think it's really good in the sense that this has happened so quickly. So what happens is we actually put thought behind it, put government backing and people seeing these effects to make proper change. So I think that it's good, because it's going to show people, like, if we can do this almost accidentally, we can definitely do it on purpose.
Yeah, it's definitely like a blessing in disguise, isn't it, the whole situation?
And
I don't want to be a pessimist, but I don't think that people are going to take it seriously after we come back. I think people are saying it now, but in terms of governments, I really doubt that it's all going to be a huge, oh yeah, we can definitely do this now. Like, it should happen 100%, but I think in reality, I think you'll see the figures just slowly go back up again. Sadly,
well,
it's so sad.
When people go back to work and people start commuting more and traveling more, it's obviously going to have a bit of an increase. But when also you consider that the economy is going to be like
in tatters.
They'll have their priorities,
that's the word I wasn't going to use, but the economy is going to be absolutely ruined after this.
Cranking that up, and it's just pushing everything else down. And another thing I was thinking about is how, so obviously a lot of people are working from home, how maybe they could make, I know this is really off topic, but paternity leave. For parents, for fathers, obviously everyone's working from home at the moment, so maybe kind of like you get to look at things like, if we can do this from home, maybe we can implement like new changes and they can work from home. So I think that like there are positives to this, both socially and with the environment, but it's just, will governments resort back to the mass production and pumping out all these things as soon as this is all cleared up, or will there be actual change?
I really hope that like people start to hold the government accountable for this kind of thing, though. Like, obviously, as you say, there are so many changes that we can see to our society, and some of them for the better. And I think if we try to hold our government accountable to keeping these changes, into keeping CO2 emissions low, and to reducing the amount that people were commuting to work and stuff, I think we could really see a positive progression in our country. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope to see you all again on the next one. Go to our website. I've forgotten what it is now. Is it GYG? We are
gyg.co.uk.
We are gyg.co.uk. Check us out on Instagram, and we hope to see you in the next podcast. Thank you.
Bye.
Woo!